All right, we are live. We are live, and I'm coming back with you with five. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to my channel, GBoo2786. This is Gavin Richard Presents. I am chilling live from the comfort of my bed to talk to you, brothers and sisters. See how everyone is doing. Hope everyone is enjoying this last part of the weekend. First week of December is out. The year is almost up, so get together and get your stuff right. Christmas is coming. New Year's is coming. So only got a limited time. I think we got what 20. It's only about 23 or 22 days left in the 2019. So get it together. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm going to continue, and I apologize because I had a previous video, and I've tried unsuccessfully to upload a continuation from my video earlier this week where I talked about Billy D. Williams coming out as gender fluid, and as well as your Dwayne Wade situation with his son Zion, and the infamous Thanksgiving photograph. And anyone hear me first with the keep me cool a little bit. And I'm one of those people. I'll tell you, sometimes I'll sleep with a fan on because it puts me to sleep. But this is one little secret about me. But yeah, I've had issues. I think YouTube has been tripping on some BS lately because they won't let me record live from my phone saying I don't have the capacity or I'm not eligible for doing so. And I've done it before lots of times, and I think it's on some BS. I know they've altered people's analytics and things before and of that nature. And I think pretty soon, though, many people are going to switch away from YouTube because they're tired of all of the restrictions that they've done. And in particular, I think YouTube certainly pushes an agenda just like many other mainstream media is pushing an agenda. And since we're talking about agendas, I'd like to get back on what I was talking about. Now, recently, Billy D. Williams was quoted in Esquire magazine as being gender fluid because he talked about he made pronouns such as himself or herself, and I see myself as masculine and feminine. Now, Billy D. Williams has recanted the next day when he heard out what gender fluid was. He recanted what he said or stated that he was misquoted, and he came out, and you guys can actually see in the video description the comments, his retraction that he stated that he is not gender fluid, that this was a mistake that they stated in his original comments to Esquire. But that shows certainly the agenda that the mainstream media has when it comes to LGBTQ, homosexuality, whatever, however you want to call it, that they try to force onto the American people. Now, I don't personally care what you do about closed doors, and really this is not, people think that if you speak out against homosexuality, if you speak out against LGBTQ, they automatically label you as a hater or a bigot and homophobe. Well, let me throw this out at you. If you are a person who cannot respect other people's opinions on something, and you have to quickly label them as bigoted, as ignorant, as homophobic, or whatever, I think you're heterophobic. And I think you are ignorant. And I think you are actually the bigoted person, because part of living in America, and when we live in a diverse nation like this, is you want to celebrate diversity. That's another thing. You celebrate diversity. You want everyone to embrace diversity. Diversity doesn't just mean accepting a liberal belief. Diversity means a collection of individuals from different backgrounds and different cultures. And by that also means different ideologies. There are people who, I'm sorry to tell you, that just do not believe homosexuality and LGBTQ is a civil rights issue. Some of them do not support it. Some people in their religious beliefs, from what they've come up, and they have a right to believe what they want to believe. They have a First Amendment right, just as you have a First Amendment right to believe in homosexuality. That is a normal thing. There are people who do not believe that. I do not believe it's normal for a man and for man on man stuff. It's against my nature. If I see it on television, I'll be honest with you, I cringe. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just natural. And there are a lot of people like that. They don't like to see too much of it. That's why I stopped watching Empire. That's why I stopped watching How to Get Away with Murder and a few of these other shows. Scandal, I never was really into that because I felt with Scandal, you had a black woman who was being basically was the white man's side piece. And what was interesting is that a lot of sisters, they loved that show. Oh, they supported Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder because it's Shonda Rhimes' show. And I think they saw themselves as being, the lover to Fitz, as they talk about the guy who played in Ghost, who played the president of that show. I was never a fan of it. And really, in honesty, if you listen to what Lee Daniels stated, and Lee Daniels said this in his book, when he talked about pushing the gay things that he has promoted in movies. He did a movie once called Shadow Boxing, which was about a man having an affair with his stepmother, or his mother, excuse me. He had Precious, which was one of, I guess if you can call it a great movie because of the acting and the acting in the movie, the cinematography, and so forth. Yeah, it was, but it was so demonic. The things that they had in there, like every negative stereotype, every negative element of life was in that film, in that print. When y'all look at, the news articles that come out, you had an incident in Texas where this, and I got to say this black female judge actually was supporting this mother's right to transgender or transform her 7-year-old boy into a girl and was training him as such. And his father was like, no, wait a minute, I don't like this. And it made national news. People didn't like it. So why is it so wrong if I disagree that this is something a child shouldn't be doing? Some things just don't go together. And yeah, when you look at people have a right to raise their children how they want. Yeah, Dwayne Wade has a right to raise his son how he wants. I agree, whether I agree with it or not, that is his son. But I wonder, when I thought about this, is what does the boy's mother, the first marriage, actually think of her son transitioning? Well, I don't think he's transitioning, but who identifies as gay at 12 years old and being in a pride parade with grown men who I've seen at some of these parades where they're half naked. I mean, what did she think about it? Did she have any say in it? I know Gabrielle Union supports it, and Gabrielle Union, she's part of Hollywood, and Hollywood is they always call it Hollyweird because it's a very weird place. It makes for strange bedfellows. There are a lot of things that they touch on. There's a lot of things that they want to push. When I talk to our friend Judge Joe Brown, he mentioned how when he worked on his show, and one of the reasons why he quit was that they wanted him to push an agenda and appeal to a certain demographic. And on top of that, I don't think they were paying him enough money, so he refused to continue with the show, which is why the show discontinued. Now, if you all disagree with me and what I believe in, that's fine. But this is probably not the right channel for you because I'm going to promote the black and stand up and support the traditional black family. I believe the best thing for a black man is a black woman. Now, people can date, people can do whatever they want to do, and that shouldn't affect you what I say. But this is my platform, and some people don't like it. Fine, go somewhere else with it. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm going to be respectful to you. I don't tout or hate or bigotry. I don't talk violence to any other group, but you got to learn to be respectful of other people. You can't, just like you don't want to be bullied, you can't bully another person to accept your ideology. Because when you do that, you know what that's called? It's called fascism. And it didn't work out for a lot of people, especially in Germany, when fascism arrived. Ask the Jews, ask the Gypsies, ask the Catholics. Everyone that wasn't that didn't apply to the Führer's ideology of the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan, and Hitler wasn't even blonde-haired. We live in a republic. That's what's great about America. But that is diversity. People can disagree. People don't have to vote how you want. People don't have to support what you want. And when you talk about your Billy D. Williams, I've heard stories from Judge Joe Brown about him. How he said, "Oh, Billy D. Williams was always gay." I noticed. I don't know anything about that. You know, Judge was in that era of the '70s in California, but I do know that they made his character, his most famous character, Lando Calrissian, a pansexual, according to Donald Glover. And I wonder, was this something because Billy D. Williams is starring in the next upcoming Star Wars movie that's coming out in a couple of weeks, I believe. I wonder if this was something that he did to, I just have to take him at his word that he misspoke. And he is 83 years old. And I think probably he didn't understand some stuff. That's possible because they got new things people didn't understand. And that's another thing. They came from a different era. Like when my father was coming up in the 1950s and 60s, you didn't see, uh, grown men wearing dresses and so forth. And you didn't see people, um, men, on television openly kissing other men. Now, if you saw a situation, especially when I was coming up and I grew up in late 80s and 90s, and yes, there were gay television characters. One thing I noticed was that in most of the films that I saw or TV shows, if there were a gay character, large percent of the time they were black. You remember LeVar from Revenge of the Nerds? He was an openly gay character. I remember Mannequin, which we used to watch as kids. The black man, the brother that played on Designing Women. He actually died not too long ago. But he played a gay character in the movie Mannequin, flaming, what they used to call flaming homosexual. Now, was there an agenda that they pushed with that? What was the message in doing that? Did they openly, did they purposely look for a black person to portray as gay, or and to be, I'm just going to say it, emasculated? Possibly, yeah. I think that's true. I mean, I wasn't around, I was so young and I didn't even think of that when I saw these movies. But now when you get older and you look at it in perspective, and, film and television is forever. Once something is on print, you're going to see it forever. So it's going to be with you. And, that's why some actors and actresses, they may be careful about the roles that they portray. I know that with Morgan Freeman, when he started out acting, one of the requirements he had in his films is that as the black man, or the only black man in the movie, he had to be portrayed with dignity, and he had to live throughout the film. And most of his films, he did survive at the end, maybe with the exception of a couple that you know of. I know movies like Unforgiven, he was killed off, and Lucky Number 11. But Morgan Freeman has had a very extensive career in Hollywood and film, and of course, he's come under fire under this Me Too thing. But I just think of stuff like that. So for those of you who get offended, if you think I'm bashing LGBTQ, which I'm not, if you got a problem with the channel, subscribe somewhere else. That's all I can tell you. But I'm going to speak up for the black family. I'm going to speak up for traditional family. You cannot and will not force me to support something I don't agree with. There's some things that the Democrats do I don't agree with. I think that this is the fact that this is taking precedent, and we're going to talk about it tonight because we're going to talk about Kamala Harris and this push by the so-called or the old black media, and they know who they are, that come and attack the new younger people, the new black media, and we're going to talk about it tonight. And since I was trying to actually go into this Russell Simmons and Oprah Winfrey, but let's go into Kamala Harris now, because most of you know Kamala Harris has stepped down from running as president of the United States earlier this year. A week before that, an article was posted out, and I have everything printed. Good afternoon, Chelsea. I saw you. I just couldn't talk because I was just going. Uh, Please tell me that's not a San Francisco avatar you got. Is that? Let me see. Fine. And I got the Saints fleece on right now. We're gonna see y'all in the playoffs again. Trust me, at the Dome. Y'all not gonna clinch. You gotta beat You gotta beat Seattle first. You gotta beat Seattle. Seattle beat y'all, man. We on the tiebreak against Seattle. So anyway, yeah, Kamala Harris dropped out, and recently you have had people in particular, and I hate to even talk about him, but I let Professor Black Truth and I let Tariq Nasheed talk about ruling the tree stump Martin. I'm not black media. He called himself, I'm the old and new black media. You ain't interviewing nobody. You know, real sassy rolling. Now, I don't really like to talk about him too much. I've already done videos about him. You guys know how I feel, and I knew he was going to say some and talk some BS. And my problem with people like that is that if you are that good at your job, you don't really need to critique or attack anybody if you're that good. But that shows an issue of self-confidence. And you haven't, because you know you got competition out here and people aren't really following you like talking about it, Roman. Oh yeah, you're on YouTube and you got 20-some thousand followers, and I couldn't believe it that Black Enterprise actually said you reached 80 million people a year. That's bullshit. I know you don't reach that many people on YouTube. Sister Nicole from Nicole's View, God bless her, and shout out to her because I always got to shout her out. She's my friend. I know she's had videos with over 1 million views, and she's got over 200. If I'm not mistaken, Nicole's got over 20,000 followers. I could be wrong. She probably could have more with that if YouTube wasn't fucking up with people's analytics, with especially black media analytics. I know she's had a video that's over 1 million strong. I know that for a fact. And she has traveled. Since you talk about, well, you ain't traveling. Some of us have traveled. Some of us have conducted interviews like she has. She has had Andrew Wyatt on her show, on her platform. I've had Judge Joe Brown on my platform. I've interviewed I've interviewed Nicole. She's been on my platform, Drew from Drew Story News. So what is this about you saying, well, you don't travel? You don't travel all the time. Do you travel all the time when you interview? I've seen you interview people from Skype. You probably got people on the ground telling you stuff too where you get your information, but I digress. Kamala Harris was not a great candidate. And I listened to the clips that Roland Martin talked about and his guest and panel. And one thing I don't understand is that as a black man, a man who's an alpha especially, you can have women on that show who espouse feminist ideologies, especially that are contrary to black males, that are so hateful. Like when you were on TV One, and that seems like a long time ago, that was current. And you have Amber, anyone know her name? Is it Amber Phillips? I can't even remember. But I remember when she was talking about accusing all men of sexual misconduct, and you checked her, to your credit. And I agreed she was out of line, but you've invited some of these same people back over and over, and she was showing her ass during the whole Cosby trial. See, I pay attention to stuff like that. We pay attention to stuff like that. That's why young people are not in touch with so-called old black media. That's why Negroes like, I gotta say, it's like Tom Joyner, Roland Martin, and even with Steve Harvey, young black people aren't feeling them like talking about it. Black people in general, as of now, not really feeling them because they know from the last 8 years of bullshit that we had with Barack Obama, the last 30-something years or 40-something years we've had with the Congressional Black Caucus that has done absolutely nothing to help black people. They knew that getting Kamala Harris into here and even Cory Booker, who's not going to stand a chance of winning, and Kamala didn't even have a chance to win either. If you honestly think they were going to give her the nomination, think again. Be real. Be real. Y'all caping for her, Russia, Putin was scared of her. Bullshit. Putin was scared of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, when she was a prosecutor, she had one of the worst track records. She tried to keep people in jail who, after being exonerated by the Supreme Court, she still fought to keep them in. Her truancy programs, where she had parents armed and chained up, was terrible. She wasn't good. Oh, black men, and I'm looking at, the Root, and I hate quoting the Root, but their title of their article, Kamala Harris wasn't allowed to fail up like a white boy, written by Terrell Jermaine Starr, and I think he sounds familiar. Hold on a second. Well, anything in general that comes from the Root, I take with a grain of salt. Or, well, I shouldn't even take it with a grain of salt. I think salt can kill. Too much salt can kill you. So I wouldn't even have it in my food. The Root is basically, as you know, an anti-blackmail website. They push. They push for the Democratic agenda. They don't really do shit. Grio too, and all of those. I believe the Root is owned by Univision. Grio is owned by Byron Allen. He owns that as well as some other companies, the Weather Channel included. But the Root has had a very dark history when it comes to African American, for black males, and basically talking down on them. And I remember they've had a lot of articles aimed at black men. And of course, they do not like Tariq Nasheed. They don't like straight black men like me and people that basically have a voice. Anybody that's not pushing an LGBTQ agenda or a feminist agenda or a democratic agenda. And that's the problem. Another thing with these old black kids, and I'm tying that in with Kamala Harris, is that they were too tied in pushing agendas and trying to keep everyone on a democratic platform. They're not interested in freedom. See, I like the idea of choosing for myself. I don't like someone else telling me what I can and can't see or who I can and can't vote for. And part of the problem, big problem, when you have people like Tom Jordan and Roland Martin, is that when I listen to them, they always talk down to young black people, but it's always a perspective where they always want to keep things tied to the Democrats, even when they would have Barack Obama on, or if they had someone from his cabinet, they always treated it with kids' gloves. They were never in a position where they were critical. And remember when they had that spat between Tom Joyner and Tavis Smiley and Cornel West, and he said something to the effect that Cornel West was Tavis Smiley's boy, basically almost in a sexual connotation, like he was Tavis's bitch. Because Tavis was going hard on Barack Obama. And you have a lot of people that continue to make excuses for Obama. When you look at his track record for the last 8 years, it was awful as in terms for blacks. He didn't do things for us. And now more and more people saw the more people are waking up because they see the state of black America right now. And the 8 years that Barack Obama was in office, and the 4 years Donald Trump has been, Donald Trump actually has given even more money to HBCUs than Barack Obama has. If I'm not mistaken, from the statistics that I've read, remember something. Barack Obama had 8 years. Donald Trump's only been in 4. When you had someone like Elijah Cummings, who had been in the Congress for 30 plus years, critiquing Donald Trump, everything about he was talking about on his Twitter handle, Donald Trump dead, and, immigrants and dreamers and so forth. He even called, back in the 90s, Baltimore rat infested. I was more impacted by your inaction than Donald Trump, any actions that Donald Trump had in just 4 years. Now, I'm not, of course, supporting Donald Trump per se. I'm not up here trying to campaign for him. I don't believe in that. If they don't have tangibles, I'm not going to support them. But what have the Democrats promised us? Kamala Harris did a disservice to herself when she said she was not going to do anything for black people specifically. Well, right there, you killed your campaign. We weren't rocking with you. I don't care if you went on Charlemagne the God and the Breakfast Club and you talked about how much weed you smoked in college, but you were locking black men up for smoking weed. Think about that, though. What sense did that make? You're on the Breakfast Club talking shit about how you smoke weed, and you listen to Snoop Dogg while doing it in the 80s. And while you were a prosecutor, you were charging black men with those crimes. You weren't giving them a pass. Well, let's come on with it. They weren't giving them a pass while she was prosecutor. And to top it off, another thing too was Kamala Harris didn't even consider herself black until recently. Every article you look at, they always address Kamala Harris, first Indian American to win to win United States Senate. Kamala Harris, Hindu American, her own father dissed her, who's Jamaican, for the comments that she made about smoking weed with Snoop Dogg. You said they don't even support that. Oh, I got their receipts online. From Chicago Now. This was July 1st. So there she was on the radio a while back on the Breakfast Club, and one of the hosts asked Senator Harris if she smoked pot. She giggled and giggled and giggled some more. All the giggling got under my skin, as did the phony accent she drifted in and out of during the interview to make herself more black for the listeners. Exactly. People recognize fake. They recognized she was fake. And her father, Donald Harris, didn't like what she said. She also jokingly referred to her roots. Half my family's from Jamaica. Are you kidding me? With regards to the fact that she remembered how it felt to get high. Mr. Harris is a professor emeritus of economics at Stanford that he began in 1972. Her mother is a medical scientist. He was born and raised in Jamaica, and he admits being descended from slave owners. And he has consulted with the Jamaican government as an economist, during the terms of 2 prime ministers. My dear departed grandmothers, whose extraordinary legacy I described in a recent essay on this website, as well as my deceased parents, must be turning their graves right now to see their family's name, reputation, and proud Jamaican identity being connected in any way, jokingly or not, with the fraudulent stereotype of a pot smoking joy seeker and in the pursuit of identity politics. Speaking for myself and my immediate Jamaican family, we wish to categorically disassociate ourselves from this travesty. So they didn't even like it. He didn't even like it. Her father came out against her. Go ahead and read that. Only got two people in the chat room, but y'all hanging with me. I appreciate it. I don't care. We gonna get to it. So is that somebody you would want to vote for president? You really want to support that? You think she had a chance, and it was because we couldn't rock with black girls? I listened to a black woman being president and so forth. Marilyn Mosby, who was the DA out in Baltimore that prosecuted those cops for the Freddie Gray matter, I would vote for her more than I would Kamala Harris, and she was a prosecutor because she at least stood up when no one else wanted to. Let's not forget also Kamala Harris's record with regards to being AG out in California, how she handled even the problems with the housing crisis there. Not going after those bankers that defrauded black and brown people. Also, let's not forget, too, while she was a AGA there, and this is something I think a lot of black people in California probably looked at, was the fact that uh, when Proposition 8, which was the bill that was being proposed to keep marriages between a man and a woman, it was passed by 64% of California voters. Around that, it was around 60%. And mostly blacks actually voted in favor of that because they were like, well, why should we change the definition of marriage when, LGBTQ, they're not looking out for us in the same way. And so it was passed by the voters. And before it went to the California Supreme Court, keep in mind also there are 36 million uh, citizens that live in California. 60% of them voted, which is a majority, which that would probably make what? Around half of 36 is about what? 18? So that means roughly 21 million or better voted in favor of keeping marriage between a man and a woman. And the California Supreme Court would not support it, of course, overturned what the people had voted, but as AG, she did not enforce that. So I pay attention to that. People in California pay attention to that. Black people have paid attention to that, and keeping that in mind, what's going on here with this LGBT, sorry, not LGBT, excuse me, the Democratic agenda. Which is that it's to push feminism, it's to push uh, the LGBTQ lobby, it's to push for immigrants, dreamers. There's no mention of reparations. There's no mention of black people. And if you saw today, and again to Sister Nicole, Joy Reid was even talking about this. Whoever watches her on MSNBC, I didn't even know she was still on there. But they talked about today, and Nicole, shout out to her again. She posted this and shared this with me. A report of disinformation targets and actors. And this report came from something called Stop Online Violence Against Women. And the list of disinformation campaigns included ADOS of American Descendants of Slaves, Blexit, Tangibles Foundation on Black Americans, that's Tariq Nasheed's hashtag, Black Voices for Trump, Walk Away, List of issues targeting black voters, reparations, criminal justice, climate change, and immigration. Stop online violence against women. I don't know exactly how do you do online violence against women. Exactly. How does that work? How do they, you know, I don't know how that works. How do they get attacked online if you talk about bullying, but how is it violent online? I don't know. This shit doesn't. I can't even trust the sources. And I'm not trying to make fun of domestic violence accusers. Let that be known. Well, this is their website. They're talking about harassment laws, online harassment. Okay, well, I can see that. Oh, okay, harassed online. But I don't. I want to know exactly what do they know about political issues. How did that come into play? Could it be on George Show or NBC talking about something like this? Well, that has to do with issues and the fact that they specifically mentioned foundational Black Americans and ADOS. And I know there's been this issue with ADOS, with Tariq Nasheed and so forth that's been going on. You know, where did that come from? What qualifies them? What qualifies Stop Online Violence Against Women to actually go over these topics with Brexit, Black Voices for Trump, and foundational Black Americans? You know, you're not obviously from looking at your website. I'm looking at it briefly. What is your issues with civil rights issues? What is your issues with with foundational Black Americans, and what we're talking about with regards to issues on reparations? And when you mention criminal justice reforms, I find that even more offensive because everything tied with criminal justice reform doesn't involve Black people. Not always. Yeah, it's a very important issue, but so are reparations, so is economic development. Our HBCUs being funded, and economic development in terms of some of the poorest areas in our cities that don't get contracts, don't get government contracts to, let's say, rebuild housing, affordable housing, or to build, new construction sites on, let's say, shopping centers and so forth. We can't get any of that stuff out here in New Orleans, and certainly not even in Baton Rouge, where I've been. But if I go into any major city, there's always going to be, and you know this, there's a separate part of town that doesn't have that same economic development that one part of town does. And I'm sorry, I would not vote for Kamala Harris because she would be the same status quo that they are pushing. We were not falling for that con game. Now, speaking of con game, from what you saw in my picture, Oprah Winfrey, this is the last topic, is coming out with this documentary that she is the executive producer. It's set to debut at the Sundance Film Festival. Notice all of these documentaries she's been associated with Michael Jackson, the Leaving Neverland, where she interviewed Wade and whoever the other liar was. Wade Robinson and James Safechuck, yeah. She interviewed those guys where they were telling out lies and she defended them. Then you have this documentary that she's coming out with Russell Simmons 2 years after several women accused Russell Simmons of sexually assaulting them. Oprah Winfrey is producing on her she's putting on, I'm reading the article, this is from thesource.com, her executive producer hat to help them tell their stories. This means that she is directly supporting this. She is putting her money against Russell Simmons. And you saw in my picture for this program tonight, Russell Simmons and Oprah Winfrey hugged up to each other. Now, what's interesting, Apple Plus is putting this documentary on, but Apple Plus would not even allow a movie called The Banker to be released at this year's film festival a few weeks back, over an allegation that a producer had stemming from a sexual uh, assault charge when he was a kid. Something that happened 40 years ago. They decided not to uh, pre- uh, premiere the film. They canceled the entire premiere and haven't heard anything from it since. I actually looked for the movie on Apple to see if I could buy it. I can't even do that. And it's actually an interesting film, but all of the actors, think of this, who worked on that movie, the screenwriters, the producers, and so forth, they're suffering because of something that hasn't even been proven, that we don't even know took place. And the producer of the film uh, denied. I'm sorry if I don't have their names and information with me. Work with me, family. I'm just here talking to you. I have other things up. So hold on a second. The producer denied the allegations. And this was an Oscar contest defense film as Apple delays release. And this complaint is against a relative of one of the heroes in the film. Bernard Garrett is one of the character that's being played by Calvin Anthony Mackie. And an allegation was made by Cynthia Garrett against her brother, half-brother Bernard Garrett Jr., that he had molested her. Apparently, I'm reading this article. Ms. Garrett, a television personality who runs a ministry in Los Angeles, accused her brother, half-brother Bernard Garrett Jr., son of the man played by Mr. Mackey, as one of the film's co-producers, of sexually abusing her and her younger sister when they were children in the 1970s. Apple removed his name from publicity materials, and he no longer appears as a producer of the banker on the website, which the film lists the film's credits. Mr. Garrett denied the accusations, saying in an email these allegations against me are simply untrue. And apparently, my understanding from reading this as well is that she had made these accusations before he denied it. And some people have questioned Apple. Some people in Hollywood have questioned whether Apple was overly cautious. When you are in the business of distributing content, unless you have an indefensible claim against you, you don't let issues and protests get in the way. Blair Westlake, a media strategist, and a former media executive at Universal Studios and Microsoft. In this case, it's regrettable that Apple will let the displeasure and concerns of a small group of people, which may be justified, in fact, they've changed their business plans. Yeah, I think, people are so quick now when they hear, hashtag Me Too, to disassociate themselves from an individual. They remove everything, their names and so forth. And it's often done without the facts being reported. Of course, there's no trial. Anyone can say anything now. There doesn't have to be any proof. That's the article from the New York Times. And, this is an Oscar contender, they say. I don't know how good it is, but Samuel Jackson and Anthony Mackie, the Avengers, are in it. And they have the Avengers and they have X-Men because Nicholas Hoult, who played Beast, is playing the white hero in the film. That helps the black heroes. Excuse me, guys, got to charge this computer up. So, at any rate, and you've had this happen even with Russell Simmons, where Russell's name actually had to be removed from from Def Jam. He stepped down. There are reports Russell had actually moved from Bali, and I know that there were accusations made. They had a lawsuit filed against Russell, and that lawsuit, I think it was last year or a year before last had to get thrown out because there were text messages between Russell and one of his accusers where they talked about after the woman had made allegations of assault. Well, sometime afterwards, she sends a text message saying, "Oh, how good she had a good time and how great the time with him was," and so forth. And it leads you to question things. Now, some people have said Russell Simmons has done things like that. Uh, I remember, I think it was on DL Hughley's show, Jasmine Sanders was saying, "Oh, this happened to a girlfriend of mine," and I think this may have been the case that got thrown out. Filmmaker's rape lawsuit against Russell Simmons is dismissed. This was in uh, 2018. Yeah, the $5 million lawsuit filed by Jennifer Jarosick was dismissed by agreement from Simmons and Jarosick's attorneys with prejudice. So if they dismissed it, wondering if there was some type of deal was put in place because it seems that they both mutually agreed to dismiss it. In a complaint, she alleged Simmons invited her to his home to discuss her documentary film, but got arrested after she rebuffed his sexual advances. Yeah, I don't know about this one, but we'll just put it up here. You guys can take a look at it. My thing, getting back though with tying this in with Oprah, is that you see, as I say again, how Hollywood has these strange bedfellows where Oprah Winfrey is pictured with Russell Simmons, and Oprah is hugging on Russell Simmons just like she was hugging up on Michael. When Michael allowed her to come into his home at Neverland to interview, so she could do an interview with him. And Oprah, of course, caught flack for the Leaving Neverland documentary. I don't know if Russell will get the same treatment. And Russell, of course, I know that he alienated a lot of black people a few years ago. He pissed us off when he did a sex tape, which was supposed to be some type of skit for his production company, where he had Harriet Tubman filming a sex tape with her slave master. And I don't even know how that made any sense because there wasn't any video footage back then, but okay, he tried it and it failed. And to his credit, he apologized, of course, after he received backlash for it. And Russell, while I don't know him, he is the reason why, one of the main reasons why hip hop is a multi-million-dollar industry, multi-billion actually, because you look from the clothing line he had with Fat Farm to producing and helping his brothers run, and then get Run DMC together. When they got Public Enemy together, LL Cool J gave them their big break. He's paved the way for a lot, and not to mention also the things he did with Def Comedy Jam. Russell Simmons' Def Comedy Jam. He executive produced that with Bob Gunther and Stan Latham in the 90s, and that put a lot of comedians out in the mainstream, gave them their first big break when they were struggling. So he has done some good things, but and of course that doesn't excuse what he's accused of, but he deserves the benefit of the doubt like any other person that was accused of something uh, as this heinous. And I know that I see a lot of similarities now with the Michael Jackson and also with Bill Cosby, how they put out these documentaries. And you notice once they put out documentaries like, Surviving R. Kelly. R. Kelly's another one. Because they just added another charge against R. Kelly, a RICO charge on, I think it goes back to when he bribed an official to get a marriage certificate for himself and Aaliyah, and also give her a fake ID. The fact that they're going back 25 years with this shit, and Aaliyah is not even alive, just baffles me. They don't want to see. it's not even a defense of R. Kelly. I just think that this is about them, and by them I mean this movement, these feminists. It's about white supremacy. It's about mainstream media. In particular, let's just call it MSM, main supremacist media, white supremacists, whatever you want to call it, feminists. I think that they want to push this agenda and they use these black men as examples because Oprah is doing this documentary on Russell, yet she won't even touch Harvey Weinstein. Oprah Winfrey even said how she felt bullied and intimidated by Harvey Weinstein, but yet I haven't seen a documentary on Harvey Weinstein from her. I haven't seen a documentary on Stephen Collins. I haven't seen a documentary on Woody Allen. I haven't seen a documentary on Jeffrey Epstein. And let's be real, Oprah knew all of those people because they're all millionaires. They're all billionaires. They're all tied together. You don't think Oprah knows Jeffrey Epstein? We know she knows Donald Trump. We know she knows Paul McCartney. Who's the other guy? Geffen, David Geffen, who was the producer of Geffen Records, and Paul McCartney, David Geffen. They all had some beef with Michael when Michael was trying to create that production company, and when Michael bought that Beatles catalog, we know they didn't like it. Geffen was always against Michael for a long time. Recently, they had beef. Oprah is an opportunist. That's just what it boils down to. That's just what it comes down to. All of this, I don't like trials in the media because they don't often work. They're mostly lynchings. And that's what you got going on right now. You're going to produce a documentary with someone making an accusation on somebody, accusing them of rape. You don't know if it's true or not, but you're going to produce this shit. And then what's going to happen is Russell is going to get charged based off that documentary in response because that documentary is going to win Emmys just like R. Kelly's documentary and Leaving Neverland did. It's going to be awarded. It's going to be on Netflix. It's going to be on Amazon and so forth. It's going to be big. But this is the type of stuff that's going on, man. My mother always loved Oprah Winfrey. She would, when she would get off from work, that's the first thing she would put on. I couldn't stand Oprah. Because every time I saw Oprah, number one, she was giving women bad advice. You can't give anybody relationship advice and you single, or you ain't even been married. And number two, she always uses her platform to criticize black men. Look at it. How many rappers did she have on her show that she always shamed? Even when she had Ludacris on there. And Ludacris was on there talking about his movie Crash with the rest of the cast. And she turned it in against, bashing him about hip-hop. When they had that TV show, Black or White, that Ice Cube produced. She wouldn't even have Ice Cube on the show. Look, I'm telling y'all, that's why we don't trust old black media. People like her, she's dangerous. I don't care how much money she has. They ain't no good for you. I've been on here long enough, guys. It's been almost an hour, but subscribe to the channel if you like what you've heard. Please support the channel. This is key. Please give monies if you can and keep me going. You have my CashApp, GavinRichardEsq. I also have Google Pay, gavin.grich1@gmail.com. There's also Apple Pay. You guys, please support the channel. All right, so if you can. And also keep in mind all of the things that are going on. Just watch out when you see these stories. When you hear from me, subscribe to the channel when I go live, when I got a video drop, so that way it's there. You guys be safe. Have a blessed one. Peace. I love y'all.